Show me your world, Chris.
Well, I thought we'd start with Christ's Tram Museum.
Great.
Dear Mum, Yorkshire is lovely, not like you said at all. They can smile, and they do sell my pasta sauce. The caravan bed is quite short, but Chris is a sensitive lover. Hope you can be happy for me. Love, Tina.
Yeah, good girl.
You are going to pick that up.
I didn't do that.
If you don't pick up this excrement immediately, then I'm going to have to inform the National Trust.
Report that to the National Trust, mate.
I don't want this to ruin our holiday.
Get in.
Never thought about murdering innocent people before.
He's not a person, Tina, he's a Daily Mail reader. Say one word and it's...
I get it, it's just thinking outside the box.
The police are pursuing a ginger-faced man and an angry woman.
Sit! You're a liability. You're just like your mother.
Has it gone wrong?
Yeah, a bit.
You didn't let him see you do number twos, did you, Tina?
We both said what a nice couple we thought you were. Oh, I love her.
I can fly!
Everyone else seems to find it so easy to express themselves. I mean, even you've got your knitting. Have you had a nice holiday?
Yeah, had a brilliant holiday.
Fuck you!
Hello, welcome to the Eurogamer Developer Sessions. We're running a little bit behind schedule, so I will simply hand it over to Lorne, Lanning, and Just Add Water.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. They said if I came, they'd give us the biggest room, the bigger room, and I was like, but we're not going to fill the room. And here you are, so thank you. Thank you for coming. Today, I'm assuming there's some familiarity with the Oddworld brand, or you wouldn't be here, correct? Okay, cool. And it's great being here. And really, today, I personally am talking less as a developer and more as a micro publisher. And what I mean by that is any products you've been seeing coming from Oddworld in the last few years have all been self-financed. So we haven't been dealing with the traditional models. And these are some big choices that we made back in 2005. If you remember, we shuttered our studio, but we kept the brand, and we kept our fingers crossed, and we were hoping for digital distribution as a way for us to actually be in control of our own destiny, of what I call Solomon's baby, you know. And if you're familiar with the allegory, the story of Solomon's baby, you know, different people claiming it's theirs and cut it in half and everyone's happy except the baby and the real mother. So in the landscape of what was happening in the world of publishing, I saw that inevitably we'd be leading more and more towards the Solomon's baby crisis. And we never started Oddworld as with an exit strategy. We never started Oddworld as a business. We started it more like a band, you know? It's just that we had stuff we really felt like we needed to talk about, and the pop of all pop mediums, games, seemed like a perfect place to possibly do that. And if we could do that well, you know, then maybe we could sort of be a Pink Floyd of gaming as opposed to a Britney Spears, you know? No slam on Britney, but I like Roger Waters better. And we've been able so far to maintain that integrity. Now, it hasn't been easy, and only because of digital distribution are we able to sort of start doing what we're doing. And as we do that, there's a number of things we've been learning, and a lot of it is from the audience. So, and you can tell I'm aging here, so I put on my glasses. So, it was really critical to us that if we could build a globally recognized brand, then we could actually wind up with a sort of integrity that might stay intact over the years. And by that I meant the reason we wanted to build games wasn't just to build games and have challenge and, you know, make money, but there was things we wanted to say. I mean, when I was looking at the world, I was just completely overwhelmed at things I knew going on. And not everyone necessarily knew these things. I had some privy insight because my dad was on nuclear subs for 17 years. So as a little baby, where's Daddy? Oh, Daddy's on the ship that's going to end the world. So it just made me look at things differently. And I had a grandfather who used to tell me of his father who disappeared in the night under the Soviets and the Bolsheviks in Latvia. And just stories of how what we see in the media versus what happens to real people are very seldom the same actual thing. And so I just had a different way of looking at things, and I wanted to express that in content the way I felt like great song makers, great novelists, and great storytellers had done in film. And games just seemed that perfect place because we had so much ability to sink so much of the audience mindshare on a single piece of content, you know? And when I started running math and going, well, how many people play games, and how many hours are they playing, and what does that mean in North America alone? I was like, my God, 60 billion hours of mindshare in 1992 was going to video games in America alone. And I was like, you know, that's awesome, but what are we doing with that? You know, we know what CNN's doing with that. We know what Fox News is doing with that. But what are we doing with that as creators? And so that drove a certain aspect of what the content was always about. Now, to shed some light on why digital distribution, when we distributed a box product, or when you buy a box product, there are costs. There's the manufacturing costs and the licensing fees to every DVD, right? So we're paying maybe $7 per DVD to be pressed. That's a risk, millions of dollars in cost. Then the gamer, is absorbing the cost, paying for the fuel of the trucks across the country, the fuel in the ships, in the planes, at the retail, the air conditioning for the store, the shelf space, the salespeople, the marketing. All of those costs are enormous. And not one of those costs actually goes into a better experience for you, the end user. It's just enabling it to get in your hand. And what we saw was that, wow, what happens when those costs go away? What might happen? What might we be able to do for the user and for the customer? And here's a great example. When we sold Abe's Oddysee, we had a 20% royalty, and out of that, we would need to earn back the $4-ish million that it cost to build it in the first place. And if it were still $59.99 on the shelf by the time it hit the market, by the time we paid it back, at $60 for you, we, the developer, the band making the music, would get $7 per unit. Right? On the digitally distributed landscape, with the same product at $9.99, how much comes back to us, the developer? $7 a unit. So you can be paying $60 a unit or $10 a unit, but the money's going right to the developer to make more games. And really today, the games that you're seeing, you are funding. And in the relationship that we've birthed with Jaws, that they actually approached us on, and it was fabulous because they were hardcore fans. In that relationship, the agreement is that the profit from these games does not get spent elsewhere, Ferraris, plane gas, wherever it's going for other people. It's not going to buy those things. We don't care about those things. It's going to build more games. And it's going to allow us to start ramping so we can get back to that quintology and finance it ourselves. And that's my ambition, because I don't want to be told what to make. I want to make the songs I want to make. And I think there's an audience that resonates with that. I've always had that faith. And that we're even here, talking about Abe 15 years later is, I think, in some ways a testament to that, and it's very inspiring. So what we've been doing is saying, okay, well, how do we try to provide those games to a wider audience that didn't have them before? And one of the great things that was happening was that we infected a bit of an audience at the initial release who now has children. And when those games started to become available on Steam or PSN, we saw that we were getting our first customers, users, fans, were now turning that on to their children, and it was blossoming new possibilities, and that was really exciting. So what we said was, okay, let's keep stepping up the risk. So if we do something, and we're paying for it for ourselves, so we have to be very careful. If we do something, we don't need to finance it for a 10x return, which is what public companies and all are looking for, a 5x or 10x return on the money. We can survive and keep going and keep building at a 1.5x or 2x return. So for a lot less profit, for a lot less sales, we can actually keep going in something that actually Oddworld was always built on and always talked about, which is really our life in an unsustainable world, right? And I was more focused in what do we do as individuals to try and get a little smarter in a sustainable world that we all live in. And I don't mean that in some woo-woo California way, even though I live in Berkeley, But what I mean is, when I started releasing these games in '97, a lot of people said, you're an anti-capitalist. And at the time, I couldn't really say, yeah, you're right, because you get slaughtered. And there was still a lot of big fans out there of the basic notion of capitalism. But really, I always hated capitalism because I saw what it did to the little guy. And that's a lot of what drove the creation of our characters. They were never the guys you wanted to be. They were never the guy that, would make you look great at the party and get you the girl, right? They were more likely the guy that you actually are. At the bottom, seemingly, as I looked at life, looking up from childhood, not much hope. A lot of oppression, a lot of corruption. Who seemed to be listening? It was very dismal, and I was like, where is the hope in the products today, particularly for the younger audience, where people, can look at something they're experiencing the way I did with Yoda, the way a lot of people did with Tolkien, and could look at that and say, wow, I find inspiration in that. I might not be getting it from school, I might not be getting it from my parents, I might not be getting it from church, but I'm finding it now in entertainment. And I thought that possibility was massive. And hijacking games to try and do something nutritious and funny and entertainment with that was always a goal and ambition. And as the years rolled on, and as digital distribution opened up, a number of things happened that I didn't expect. One was that I used to say games are disposable, because it used to be that if a game had its life on a certain console, and that console passed and we were into new console, the console makers didn't want those old games on their new systems because they weren't selling the chips. You know, all these reasonable reasons, and they have billions of dollars to recoup, and that's all fair. So it wasn't like music, you know? Music is something where if you love soul, no matter what new contraption playing music today, MP4 player, DVD player, CD player, whatever, you can still find those songs that you love because it's not about the technology delivery system, it's about the content, right? And games weren't really going that way. So I used to say, and I said to an agent once, he said, Lorne, but we should do this with Abe. And I said, don't you realize no one's ever going to be playing them in 10 years? We're in a disposable industry. And he goes, God, that's the most depressing thing you've ever told me. And I was like, well, I believe it's true. And I'm really grateful that I was wrong. And things that blew my mind was, you know, Steam really opened it up, right? And I think Gabe Newell and the people at Valve are some of the smartest people in the industry. And since Oddworld, as a studio in the Central Coast of California, I've spent a lot of time going up and trying to pick the brains of smarter people. And Gabe in particular has always stood out to me as being brilliant. And as we were looking at that, the other big thing that happened was Sony started emulating PSX on PS3 and PSN. And that was like really actually revolutionary because that wasn't in the mindset before. And with that came this revitalization. And we were also really fortunate in that a lot of people that succeeded and grew in Sony were actually people that were involved in the initial marketing of Abe, whether it was at GT or at Sony itself. And so there was a certain nostalgia. And it was always my idea that if we made things that had more heart, had more intent, had less market committee shaping, and more just like, what do these people want to tell? What do they want to deliver to the audience? What do they care about? If we could make products that were like that, hopefully we could find an audience. And today, we can find that audience. And we don't have to sell 1.5 million units or we're dead. We can sell 50,000 units and keep people employed and really actually build a self-sustainable micro-publishing developer model. And that's the experiment that is Oddworld today. And when you go to the studios of Jaw, and you see the passion of the people building the games and what they care about, and the questions they're asking me, is it okay, is it not okay, should we do this, should we do that? You can tell it has that same heart and soul of the original teams building this. And that's a wonderful thing to see, and I think it's reflecting in the products that they're starting to making. I think most recently with Stranger HD. Did many of you get the chance to see that at all? Okay. I think they did a good job. Yeah? To Jaw for doing a great job on an existing title. Thanks, guys. And what that really did was it boosted our confidence that we could try a more, we're too small to be disruptive, but we could try to do something that might be able to succeed in the disruptive landscape. And that was self-finance, find an audience, listen to that audience. Because if you're telling us something, before, it was very hard to hear it. I mean, look, when we did the first Abe, half the market didn't even know what www meant, right? Really. There was no Facebook. There was no YouTube. There was not a lot of these things that bring exposure today. But when we made that, we had this faith in its longevity, and we always stored the assets. I remember seeing what George Lucas was doing with Star Wars, what Disney had done from the original movies, and I was like, we've got to store the assets because maybe there's new life in this down the road. And as that new life has emerged, what's happening is that we are now reinvesting everything that comes in to raise the bet, raise the risk for each one. And the success that I believe Sherry and I, because Sherry and I still are, as the initial founders and still the whole owners, we went through war to sort of get it to stay intact, to keep that baby whole and not get split, right? And the success that they've been bringing and the love and passion that they're putting into the products, I think, is reflecting to the audience. And really, the audience is who's paying for the games now. Because with each success, we have a larger pool and we can take a higher risk. So where Stuart's going to be talking a little while about Abe and what's coming with Abe, commonly so far referred to as Abe's Oddysee HD, it is not. It is more than that. It's a whole rebirth from ground zero, Abe in 3D. However, in listening, even when we came out with Stranger, a lot of people were like, I want that classical, old, platformer play, that what was going on with that, I want that. And it was very surprising to us to hear just how many people were saying that, and in a landscape of, Calls of Duties and these, incredible-looking games in 3D. And so we were like, okay, how do we address that and do it in a way that actually maximizes newer technology, that we can use that technology in a way that I call neo-stalgic, right? Where we take the nostalgia and we just turn it to 11, And in doing that, how do we maximize what we were always after, which is the emotional engagement of the characters? Like, that was always critical to me in designing a character. If you look at Stranger, if you look at Munch, if you look at Abe, each of the mechanics that they did was integral to who they were. And the abilities they had mirrored their position in life. And what I felt was going on in gaming, and I'm not slamming it, but it was what I was observing, was that really most of the stories that we were seeing were really excuses to shoot things, right? So do I have a good excuse? Did this guy screw us over enough so that it makes sense that I can go kill people all day? I mean, that's all good, and I enjoy those games too, but it's not what we wanted to do. And so today, as we're taking these steps forward, it's still my ambition, personally, to finish the quintology at a AAA level. But we have to we're paying for it ourselves. And I've tried a couple business ventures and failed on the last one, where I'm actually trying to earn $20 to $40 million so I can put it right back into this stuff. Because I never had kids, I never will. Sherry didn't, she won't. These are our kids. And while a lot of people and the fans thought we were stepping away, we weren't. We were just keeping the baby whole. And the only way to do that at the time was to not take on the new forms of deals that said, if we have success, the publisher gets to acquire you at pre-success value. If you don't have success, they get to toss you to the curb. And in that landscape, you're going to wind up with Solomon's baby. And so it took us time and it took us patience to keep it whole and keep the integrity of the brand. And then ultimately, being approached by Stuart and Jaw showed us another possibility of how we could actually get there. And all of our successes at small levels could actually, if 50,000 units can keep people employed, then we're more in like a sustainable farming model rather than some massive factory monoculture model. And if we can do that with growth, we'll keep on increasing that bet. And if we blow it, because we don't have the $4 million marketing campaign, we don't have it. So what we're relying on is we're relying on the press and we're relying on the audience to spread the word and say, I like this. And we're very fortunate that we had a globally recognized brand that sustained some integrity. But because of that, we're able to reach new audiences today, and we're able to do it at a lower risk, which means less risk to the baby staying whole. And we can do it with smaller successes and build. And eventually, we aim to finish that quintology and get back to AAA, but I don't want to do it until I'm paying for it. Because then, we get to make the music we want. And on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Stuart. He's going to show you what they're up with, talk about the new titles, and I just thank you all for being here and supporting us. Stuart, CEO of Jaw and our marketing department.
There we go. Afternoon. Recognize this guy? Good. Phew. Otherwise, what am I doing here? Okay. Before we talk about Abe and what's next, to touch on what Lorne said about digital distribution. As a company ourselves, Jaw's now 7 years old next month. October, end of October, which I'd completely forgotten about until just now. And we've not done nothing but digital product in that entire time. Stuff for other people, stuff for Sony, and then the Oddworld stuff. And as someone who's been in the business for 25 years now, done, Atari ST, Amiga, SNES, Mega Drive, PlayStation 1, 2, 3, everything. To work on products with, $5+ million budgets, it's scary when you're the producer at top of the project tree and it's your ass on the line when things go wrong. I don't like that anymore. So now I'm getting kicked by that man. which is not as hard, which I like, which is good. So on digital distribution, and the present for us, it's two things. One is, with the brand itself, working with Oddworld, is trying to bring it back to life again, as Lorne said, and reintroduce it to the kids, the people who played the games 15 years ago, which some of you may actually be some of those kids. I don't know. Oh, there's one there. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hands up if you parents introduced you to these or you've seen these for the first time. Okay, that's a few of you. That's cool. So to do that, in this generation, you can't just say, I'm PlayStation, I'm Xbox, I'm PC. So one thing Lorne and I spoke about originally was Oddworld going forward are platform agnostic in that we will go anywhere as long as they'll have us. Which you might have noticed has been missing one platform. We'll get to that in a minute or two. So resurrection of the brand via digital distribution. So, the thing about digital distribution is it allows small companies, as Lorne said, micro publishers or self-publishing developers to do product themselves, publish themselves, and be the masters of their own destinies. And that's something we've tried to do, and so far, I think we're doing okay with it. Retail sales globally are falling quite quick. I kind of predicted that this time next year, digital would overtake retail. As of this week, official figures in the UK state that retail is less than 50% of the market now, and digital is more than 50% of the market, which I wasn't expecting, I said, for another year. Thanks to Valve with Steam, PlayStation Network, and XBLA to some degree. The Nintendos are still way down the bottom there with their system. Never mind. But yeah, so it's nature of the beast. Sony, when they first came out with the PS3, they got a lot of flack for not having an Xbox Live type system. But they quickly overtook Microsoft in that department by providing it to independent companies and publishers, where Microsoft don't. They simply just say, you can't come on board currently. So few horrible figures here, kind of. First 2 Abe games, re-released as classics in 2009. They've shifted 750,000 units digitally alone in 3 years across those, Vita came out like 4 weeks ago, I think. Firmware 1.8 came out, allowing you to play PS1 classics on them. So we're pretty chuffed with those kind of figures. And it shows that not only do the games stand up to what they were 15 years ago, but people with handhelds, with Vitas, with PSPs, with PS3s and PCs, they're buying these games again. So it kind of tells us that Oddworld is still a valued property and people still want to play Oddworld. Stranger's Wrath HD, we released it PS3 at Christmas, which was before Christmas. 10 months development time. We made our investment back in 4 weeks pretty much, and so far done over 200,000 units on that. And the Vita version is out probably 6 weeks from now. It goes into Sony certification in 2 weeks' time. So people asking me constantly on Twitter and Facebook, when's Stranger Vita coming out? Or have you cancelled it? Why did you cancel it? We haven't cancelled it. It's 2 weeks away from submission, and it'll be out in November. Munch's Oddysee HD. The other question we get is, where's Munch's Oddysee HD? As you can see, it's been developing for 16 months now. It's taken longer than we anticipated, mainly because the game uses a much older technology than Strangers used. So that's a 12-year-old, almost 13-year-old game in some respects, with a much older technology behind it. It's releasing again Q4 this year, and his PS3 version is probably about 3 weeks away from submission to Sony as well. So we're close. So yes, the future, which I think most of you might want to hear about. Oddworld Quintology. As Lorne said, we would love to finish off the Quintology. To do that, though, we're taking the little risks, one little bit at a time, getting bigger and bigger with each risk. Example, the Stranger HD team, compared to the Oddysee team is, say, twice the size of the HD team for Stranger, and it's got 2 times the budget size. But that's because of the commitment we're putting to it. We're putting more and more each time. So, Abe HD. Now, I've been calling it Abe HD now for, a year almost, in quotes, because it's not Abe HD. It's not the original PlayStation 1 games up-resed on PS3 or whatever. It's a bit more than that. What we're doing is we're keeping the original gameplay. The gameplay is not changing. So it's a 2D game, platform game, but it's got 3D living environments. By that, where you had a small area of the screen before which would animate a small amount, little barrel going by, little repeating animation. That doesn't happen anymore. The whole background comes to life. It breathes life into the whole Rupture farms and the factories you'll see in a moment. It shows the things I, as a fan, wanted to always know what happens in the background of Rupture farms. GameSpeak, we've broadened that in the sense that you don't just have hello. A will say 6 or 7 different things for hello, and that other Madarkans and Sligs will respond in the same way, and other characters respond with more GameSpeak. But the core element is still there. That hasn't changed at all. And there's a few surprises we're going to talk about in the next year before we come to release. So, Oddworld Abe's Oddysee, new and tasty is what we're calling it. Yay! Okay. So, a quick show of hands, why you think we've called it new and tasty? New features, yes. Gentlemen there? Exactly. At the start of Abe's Oddysee, when Abe's first finding out his fate as an ex-floor waxer at Rupture Farms, he and his brother are going to be churned up into meat for the new and tasty meal and street snack from Rupture Farms. So when we asked you guys, the community, on Oddworld.com, what you would like to call this Abe HD, probably the largest suggestion we had was Abe Oddysee, new and tasty. And that's what we're sticking with. So, who'd like to see it? If he presses play, Dan. There we go.
Good to see it.
Howdy. Hey there, Abe. Okay, guys. I'll do what you say. Ugh. Ew.
Couple of caveats on the footage. It's pre-alpha. All the visual spot effects, particle effects are entirely placeholder done at 10 o'clock on Friday morning. Yeah, the big things we wanted to do with it was the problems we would have had, obviously, going from flip screen to scrolling is that some of the puzzles were entirely flip screen based in the original game. So the one you saw there at the very start, when you jump past the mines, Abe, in our version, is here possessed the Slig straight away. If you wake up, in the original game, you'd have to creep by him, and if you didn't creep by, you woke him up. So you'd go off the screen, reset the puzzle. In the new version, because it scrolls, we've given the Sligs a bit more AI, so after a period of time, some of them will just go back to sleep again, just to get around that little puzzler. So yeah, So that's the basic caveat, but like I say, we're a while away from release, but as we go through time, we'll put some more proper footage out to show you guys. So platforms, well, you saw that one. Oh, by the way, that demo was running on this PC this morning, but because we didn't want to hog it, we had to capture it to footage. So it was running at 60 frames a second this morning. So PS3, PlayStation Vita, and PC. Oh, and XBLA as well. We've been pestering certain parties to allow us on the platform, and we've got concept approval 4 weeks ago for this. So when it follows me on Twitter, saw me go, fuck yeah! Sorry, my French. That's why. So yeah, we're there with XBLA, PS3, Vita, and PC at launch, and maybe Mac, maybe iOS, possibly later, we don't know, we'll see. Autumn next year, so September through November next year, we'll be releasing it digitally on the aforementioned platforms, and we're excited. I mean, we're really excited. It's the game I've wanted to make now, for 15 years, kind of, but as a developer in modern times, probably the past 7 years, bugging Lorne via a mutual friend of ours to get Lorne to remake Abe, and message going, Lorne doesn't want to do Abe, he doesn't care about Abe anymore. He does care about Abe, he doesn't care about, at the time, the future platform, didn't know how it was going to go, as he said. So now we know that digital is happening and is working very effectively. It's time to bring back Abe. So there you go. That's my bit done. Do we have any questions? I think Tom's going to come up from Eurogamer, and oh, here he comes. And Lorne, you want to come up here as well? Do some questions?
Okay, can we get the house lights up, Tanya? Lovely. There are guys with mics in the audience, so if you can stick your hand up, we'll find you. And I will, if you keep your hands up in between questions as well, so we can keep preloading microphones. And when you get the microphone, please stand up, ask your question, and sit down again. Let's start with this guy in the centre.
Oh,
Hiya.
Dan Taylor.
Nice to see you again. Right. Can I ask politely, do you know if the fan petition has managed to get any more distance with getting Abe into PlayStation All-Stars?
I can't talk about that.
Right. Okay. This chap, the mic is just behind your shoulder.
Could you
stand up so people can see you? That's great.
What was the story behind the name change from Oddworld Stranger to Oddworld Stranger's Wrath?
You know, it's weird because people have been asking me that, but I always thought it was Oddworld Stranger's Wrath. You know?
From the very beginning?
Yeah, from the very beginning. And
the first video, the name was Oddworld Stranger, and I thought that...
Oh, well, you know, back then, you know. I mean, everything's an iteration, right? So as a developer in the trench, you know, you're constantly having to show goods to keep the faith from your, you know, paymasters, and show something to the audience and show that there's an audience that wants it. So you're usually getting stuff out before you've really had a chance to think it through, you know. And so if that said stranger, you know, it said it clearly. But by the time we were like, okay, let's pin this down, you know, because I think a lot of what we're thinking is the new character is Stranger. And then we ultimately decided on Stranger's Wrath. Yeah.
Okay.
But people had said that was EA forced it on us, and that was not true.
I had heard that it was a licensing thing.
No issues there. Oh, well, You're right. I forgot. Real quick, so there was a Russian game, and it was called Stranger. It was an RTS. And as our publisher told, so we were originally, I was just calling it Stranger, right? And then we got, and I'm sorry, this completely slipped me. And then we got but it still wasn't the final name. We didn't intend on it, but we got some legal notices from a very, let us say, from a group that EA was afraid of. And they said, their legal department, you know, not only legally, but in other ways too. Did I mention it was a Russian developer? So, and so it was fine. I never cared because we never were going to carry that as a single title anyway. So there's the story. And thanks for the reminder.
You're welcome.
Okay, due to overruns, we have time for a couple more questions. There's one here in the front, and then there's one over on the side. So go ahead, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
You said you want to continue with the quintology.
Yeah.
Is it the same plan? So, like the third one would be Squeak's Oddysee.
I hope so. Yeah. Now, you know, in content, right? I want to quickly. You always have to be careful for changing market conditions or events. For instance, Mudokan Pops was originally, the logo was a head on a stick, right? And then something happened in Japan where a kid murdered someone in a schoolyard, school kids, and hung the head on a stick on the front of the school. And it shocked the Japanese people. It was very uncommon. And in good taste, you change that. Another case is Munch's Oddysee. All of the newspapers that were reporting the fugitives throughout the game originally were calling them terrorists. Right? And then shortly before release, we had 9/11. So being intelligent, you have to be adaptable. And so sometimes, the intent is, yes, Squeak would be the next. But maybe something happens that makes that not make sense. Regardless, you have to be malleable, right? So it is the intent.
And with Abe's HD, new and tasty.
New and tasty.
Can he still fart?
Oh, yes.
Of course.
Oh, yeah. And we put quick save in as well before Henry asks that one.
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for one more question. It's someone over on the right, I think. Yeah? There you go. Yes, in the centre of the right.
So with the release on the PC, I assume it's coming on Steam, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. With Steam coming to Linux soon, would you be willing to release it for that platform, HD, and also maybe port the previous ones?
I don't know. We've actually looked at it internally about putting it in Linux and Mac and other things as well. Possible, but not committing to anything.
I mean, the goal is, and this is where Steam's been very, I think, great. Steam's been a breath of fresh air for everyone in the industry in different ways, but the goal is just to maximize platforms. So as long as we can afford it, and as long as it makes sense, and makes sense to us, like I said, is different from makes sense to a public company, because it doesn't have to have the same scale rewards. It can be smaller. But any available channel that helps get more people to more games to more people, we're going to try and embrace. Yeah.
It's a minute. Can I just ask you all quickly if I can take a picture of you all? Can you all shout Oddworld at the same time? 1, 2.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you.